Welcome to a special edition of Crawford County Outdoors. We are at Conneaut Lake today, and we were talking weed harvesting here. Karen Styborski is joining us. Karen, you're the chairman of the Conneaut Lake. Tell me again.
Conneaut Lake Aquatic Management Association.
Okay, so weed harvesting. Where did it all come from? Give us some little history here.
Okay, CLAMA was formed in 1996. It was in response to direct public outcry for people not being able to use their recreational vehicles on the lake. So there was a lot of discord, and with cooperation of all the representatives through Harrisburg and everything, they came up with a plan to create this organization to represent all the interest groups around the lake to guide and manage what we do on the lake and how we manage that program.
So basically, if you had your boat out and it was all weeds all over the place, your motor was going to get tangled up in the weeds and all that kind of stuff, A. And B, if you're out for fishing or whatever, yes, some natural habitat is good for fish, but if it gets overdone, right, I mean, that's going to throw that off the chart. And
right.
Am I right about that?
You are right about that. And people that purchase a home up here and live on the lake want to use the lake.
So give us a little history here. So when did this get started? And behind us we have the newest harvester here.
We do. We've been operating a harvester since I think 1998. Our first harvester came because we had a wizard in the conservation district who wrote a recycling grant in order to help us purchase that. So that lasted us for 15 years, and we replaced it with a second harvester here in 2012. And it's been running now this is its 10th season. So
now I do see it like in the local newspaper from time to time. There'll be so now stay out of the lake for a few days because we're going to put some weed treatment chemicals in the water. And then, so is that essential, to make this work, to do that first, or?
Correct. It's a cost-effective management plan for the entire lake. What CLAMA was formed for, it was to preserve the ecological, economic, and recreational value of the lake, to promote public safety, which is very important, and to provide an education and to provide a long-term sustainable, cost-effective management system. So we have a three-pronged approach overall. One of those is by using an herbicide, which you just spoke of early in June, that helps kind of push back the weeds for a little while, but it's not a long-term solution. It helps give people ability to use the water currently. And then through our harvesting operation, which runs throughout the summer, and then education to try to help prevent further fertilizer and nutrients from running into the lake to help prevent on a long term.
So let's jump on that point for a second. So give us kind of a summary of so if I'm fertilizing my lawn, it's like, if it runs in the water, no big deal. Well, actually it is a big deal, right?
Well, it is a big deal. Yeah, stormwater runoff is a very big deal, and from anywhere in the watershed that brings nutrients down into the water helps fertilize and feed weed growth. So if you don't want weeds in your lake, then you don't want nutrients and fertilizer to go into the lake. For lawn, for chemicals and fertilizers, you can choose phosphorus-free fertilizer, which is a much better choice, or just let a couple dandelions grow and just trim them back.
I remember when Tamarack was being closed down, and there was a talk about what can we do to bring it back and control the weeds, and then not let weeds from other lakes get into this lake, and because certain weeds, kind of block certain kind of fish growth and all that kind of stuff. Is there any of those kind of things that you want to plug out there to people to get that in just in the back of people's minds?
Yes, that's a very good point. The original weed that was a problem was Eurasian water milfoil, which has become less of a problem. We've been very successful in cutting that down and encouraging native weed growth, which is great. It helps for the health of the lake. There is an imminent threat in the area called hydrilla. It's been coming up from Florida and from the south and gradually working its way here. It is a much denser weed and grows in a much larger area, so it'll be a much bigger problem when it arrives. It thankfully has not been spotted here yet, but it is over in Pymatuning, so they're dealing with it. So it is very imperative that people practice cleaning their boats when they take them in and out of different lakes, and making sure that there are no hitchhikers, they call them, along the way, making sure all that aquatic vegetation is out of the boat before moving it into a different lake.
So if you do take your boat out and you're going someplace else and there's some weeds hanging off the side, no big deal. There's just some weeds. You want to get rid of, you want to wash that off, you want to get rid of that and make sure it doesn't go with you to the next stop.
Absolutely. There are definite protocols for that. You want to wash it with hot water, you want to let it dry out for a week. I don't know the exact time, that's not my area of expertise, but there are signs at most every boat launch that have those criteria there. And it's very easy to look up on the Fish and Boat Commission website as well.
Okay, so this has been going on now for more than 20 years. So what do you think what was it like then? What's it like now? I mean, to me, it seems like it's better. Is that right?
We have very good feedback that it's manageable, that people are very happy. Toward the end of the summer, it always gets thicker as it does. And we definitely make a focus to try to cut farther into the season so that we remove more nutrients, because the goal, I mean, we had a watershed implementation plan done a couple years ago, and really the harvester is one of the most effective ways to remove phosphorus from the lake.
Okay.
So the other avenue is prevention, and that's what all the municipality recommendations are for, is try to prevent the stormwater and the nutrients from coming in, but we remove them by getting them out of the lake with the harvester.
Now we're filming in July here. This July's been kind of weird with typically July's a dry month, and it's been especially wet this year, and the lake level was high, and that kind of was floating people's docks away, and I mean, I heard stories of people's boats floating away, and then, you know, others retrieving them and bringing them back and all that kind of stuff. Is that a factor? I mean, are things like that, you know, when you have weather things that nobody can do anything about, you know, does that, you know, throw a curveball?
Certainly. Certainly it does throw a curveball, but we have a great team, and they really manage everything very well, so they take care of everything.
I remember seeing stories here, you know, no boats, you know, no wakes, all that kind of stuff. Can the harvester not run whenever, you know, it's real high and, you know, you're going to mess up everybody's dock, or?
Correct. We held off for a few days to make sure the water was at a low enough level. Now, we don't really generate a wake, so it's not really in concern for the no wake zone, but for safety practices and for things floating around, it was best for us to refrain for a few days and wait till the water came back down.
Now the boat that's over...
I mean, the water's up, so you have much more room to get to the weeds at that point, because it came up suddenly. But then they grow faster up to the top, so then they're going to be higher when it comes down.
So that's not a typical July thing. I mean, this issue was very unusual, and that's not something you can count on all the time. But okay, so over our shoulder here is the newer boat, and
yes.
There was one before that, right? This is the second one.
Yes, this is the second one. We had the first one for 15 years, and we were very fortunate. Our head of operations then found someone to sell it to used, and we were able to recoup a lot of that and help use it to pay for this one.
Now how does it work exactly? So there's the cutter on front, and then it looks like almost like a treadmill thing in the back there. Is that what happens? It goes on the treadmill and gets piled up? And
yes, absolutely. The front has the cutter bar, which goes down into the water and cuts it. There's a conveyor attached to that, which brings the weeds up, and then it moves along the conveyor on the boat as it gets filled up, and then they bring it in here to shore, to the shore conveyor to unload it into the truck. Okay. And then it goes to...
Is there a certain perfect height up under the water that you cut the weeds at a certain height, or?
I let the operators make, that decision making. It's based on, you don't want to run it into the ground, but you want to cut lower so you get more. So it depends. It's different every area of the lake. So depending on the depth of the water.
So I was excited last week to come out for the Bass Classic and follow that around. Do the weeds of the fish want the weeds to hide in, or does it overtake them? What's the story there?
Well, you might have to go above my head for that one. I don't know about the all. Some fishermen like the weeds. Some people like it that we thin them out. So it's all across the board.
And I've heard the thinning out was a popular thing. And
there's an entire area of the lake we don't touch at all to leave natural up at the north end, where it's very shallow and there are obstructions up there, and it's dangerous to really bring your boat in there anyhow. So from the canal at the north end pretty much to the Fish Commission access, we don't cut that area at all.
The frustration I heard from the people that were in the Bass Classic was they couldn't race over to the spot they always get to. They were only allowed to just creep along and whatever. So we always catch the limit of fish. We only got 6 this time. We couldn't get our 8. I heard that story about 10 times. That was a little frustrating, but it was a good event. Everything worked out well. And
I'm glad the event went well.
It's so impressive when they hold up those fish that are like this big. That was the lunker. The lunker award. So, well, did we miss anything? Are there any other things that you would like folks to know about this?
Well, in general, the herbicide treatment is used to treat around the dock areas, because we don't want to bring the equipment in close to docks and boats and things to risk hurting them or running into them, or our primary concern is safety of people and equipment. So the harvester is used more for open waters. But we try to do as much as we can to help as many people out, and the entire program is focused on treating the lake as a whole and for the health and benefit of the entire lake. It's not a specific thing. It's about where does it need it most, and we try to do our best to service that.
So you think it'd be okay if I rode along with our operator there and got some close-ups of what it's like to make it work?
I think it'd be great if you went along with the team. We have an expert team this year, and we're very happy with all of them.
Okay, we're going to harvest some weeds.
Great.
Cool.
Yeah, 4-cylinder, in-car, marine diesel on it. That runs it. Basically, all it does is run a main hydraulic pump. And then there's lines going off of it. There's 11 other pumps around it.
So now in the water down there, is there a cutter that's doing this?
Yes,
back
there's
and
a
forth?
horizontal cutter.
And then because you're...
And then two vertical cutters on each side.
And then because you're moving, they're just going to come onto this treadmill here and then land on this one.
Conveyor belt here, land on this one, and then this one piles up. I can move it back a little bit. This way.
Boy, you know, CD weeds, they're coming up like crazy already.
Yeah. Yeah, when the water was real high, you really couldn't see them. And you knew where they're at for memory, and all of a sudden it was coming up.
Which ones are these?
These are pond weeds.
Okay. John, you try to do this like you're mowing the grass, like you go out and then come over a little bit and then come back and then over a little bit?
You don't see the road as much. You try to follow it. I usually try to judge the distance I'm off from the dock for parallel with the shoreline. now that the lake is falling back down to a level, you can really see the weeds that they came up with the high water.
There's a lot of weeds right there.
You get pockets of those. This is like a grass stuff that is really hard to cut because it kind of lays down as you're coming through to cut it. Then we back it up a little bit. It's almost laying across the surface now. Some of these are.
So how many trips out does it take to cover the whole lake area that you cover? Is it like you get a quarter of it every day, or
oh no,
like a tenth of it every day maybe, or
not even every day. Overall, we're probably cutting about 10 to 15% of the whole lake. We're not cutting the weed beds everywhere, just the ones that see a lot of boat traffic. Boats in and out of dock, or in and out of the channel.
so where it's real deep out in the middle, you're not going to bother out there.
Out there. And the weeds will grow about 17, 18 feet of water is about the maximum depth. If any water deeper than that, they don't get enough sunlight. Up until the deeper mussels did a few years ago, it was around 15, 16 feet. The deeper mussels cleared up the water a good bit. And so, so most of the water we're cutting in is about 5 feet or less. But the weeds will only grow so high, even in that deep 10, 12, 13 feet of water, they're only going to come up a couple feet. But we can't reach down any more than 5, 5.5 feet with the blade.
That's a ton of weeds, right? Wow.
Yeah.
Now, when you make your next pass going the other way, can you see where you just
Sometimes this stirs up the sediment a good bit. And sometimes you can't see it, but if you come back a half hour later, you'll see the path that you cut, so then you cut another one.
Oh, I see a couple fish, a couple little pike.
Little perch. I picked up a lot of fish yesterday. As soon as I see a bigger fish, I shut it down to give it a chance to swim out. I picked up one big muskie a few years ago up along the east side. It was a good 40-plus inch muskie.
Oh, wow.
And it shocked me at first when I first saw it. You know, it's like, whoa. And, I shut it down right away.
That one, it keeps tumbling back down the slope there.
Yep. I don't know if he has a fish or not.
Like he's got a fish, maybe.
It's tangled in the weeds. Probably. Yeah, that's it. But no,
Oh yeah, it's a big fish. How about that?
He landed?
Yeah.
Oh, northern?
That looks like a good 2 or 3 foot long
Northern, probably.
pike, maybe.
Yeah.
So you think the machine's got that guy going?
I always wonder that. The lily pads around the lake, we don't cut those unless they're right behind the boat that has to go out and go through them. Otherwise, we let them grow, let them get the, the flower that everybody likes to see on them. Now see, I cut through here, but I didn't cut these weeds up. So you see a little path that I went through yesterday.
Oh, okay.
So I can see I'll kind of stay to the left of where that I cut yesterday up through here. We usually try to work 2 weeks on the south end, 2 weeks on the north end. After Labor Day, we're going to set up on the over at Midway, swim area. But across the bottom there and on the side. Something we try to do is, especially this grass, you get a lot of floaters. So we try to come back and pick those up. That's like the #1 complaint we get from people. You're doing a good job, but you leave all these floaters that come up on my beach, the dock area. Well, we can't get them all. Like I said, you can tell it's that grass that's really expensive. So when we pick up the floaters, I don't go down as far. It's less resistance. You can see how it funnels in. Water funnels in around the blade. It makes them up a lot better. Sometimes I can get a whole load in 30 minutes. Because then it takes me an hour to pick up all the floaters that were left. Floaters are one of the most frustrating things to cut because you're going along, you'll see a big batch, and you start to cut those, but then you look off to one side or the other, and you got another bigger batch. There you go. When you have a little gentle wind on here, it's really nice because it'll push those floaters into almost like a hedgerow. Like you're cutting hay or something, you can come back and try and get a bunch. can always tell where there's a bunch of floaters out there, not out this morning, because the ducks love them. They come around, I'll have as many as a dozen or so ducks follow me. I'm like the Pied Piper of ducks. And it's funny sometimes when they're in front of me, they'll skedaddle off. And it's almost like the movie The Lady and the Tramp, when they both are sucking the noodle at the end. These ducks will be swimming away with pieces of grass hanging out of their feet.
So they're after the grass, not stuff that the grass stirred up. They're after the actual grass.
Yeah, they're actually they love this grass. I don't know why, but they chew it up like spaghetti. Like I said, this type of weed is the worst one to float. You can see that down here, it just leaves big piles. We try to pick up as much as we can. This thing can maneuver really good, but when it's windy, it's like a big sail out here. It catches all the wind and pushes you where it wants to.
When somebody goes flying past and makes a wake, is that
Some of the bigger boats will do. We cut 2 days with the no wake move in effect because you can see we don't give out much of a wake. So the board of directors said go ahead and cut. And we were cutting and it was really nice out here. You know, they did the United Way bass tournament and I talked to a couple bass fishermen afterwards. They said it was kind of a little bit of an inconvenience lot to be able to rush up and down the lake.
hurry up to the spot you want to get to? Yeah.
Right, but everybody was on the same playing field, and it was nice that they weren't, you know, getting rocked around a lot and everything.
I heard a couple of guys, I came over to the weigh-in, I heard a couple of guys talking that the one guy that got the lunker champ, the biggest fish champ, was under a dock, I think.
I saw a bunch, they love to fish under the docks on this lake. There's some big bass in this lake. You're never going to get the 8-10 pounders, you know, only because they're not feeding year round as much as the ice. But
I think it was 4.8 pounds, or what, so it was
that's a good size.
pretty good sized bass.
Yeah.
It was yeah.
And I really believe that by cutting certain areas, you kind of control it to where it doesn't just start to spread. You know, just unchecked and everything. I think by doing this, you know, in certain areas, you keep it in check and it doesn't go wild. I've been on this lake for 45 years. And I remember back before this started, there were areas you just wouldn't go to. And, you know, people, I felt sorry for the people that lived up there. One of the areas that used to be the worst was that northeast corner up by Lauderdale Estates. That was just laid with weeds.
I remember I was about maybe 7th or 8th grade. I was helping Fenton's, our friends. They had just bought their cottage across from the park over there. And we went on like an airboat and went across like up to where the golf course used to be.
Yeah.
And it was exactly what you just said. You almost couldn't get through. It was so thick with weeds, and that would have been what, 72 or something. You know, that would have been maybe about 50 years ago, something like that. It was
Like that, yeah. So I started coming here in '74. Wanted to really get somebody that you didn't like skiing behind the boat, you always took them through there. And then cut the boat.
What little paddles are they? Are they your kind of your directional control?
Oh yeah, it's like a dozer, a bulldozer.
Where do the weeds get dumped after they make it into that truck?
We take them to a couple individuals. They like one individual uses them around his fruit trees for fertilizer. Another one is planting a yard for his son to build a house next door. He's mixing it up with the dirt, you know, let it settle. Taking it to a couple other people like that.
So after it dries out, it is good fertilizer then.
Yeah, yeah. You got to let it sit for about a year, get a lot of the nitrogen out of it. It's nitrogen rich. Then after that, I had one farmer from Townville come down and get some last year, take for his corn and tomatoes. He said it worked out good. So we just, you know, and then if nobody wants it, we take it up to the gravel pits and they bury it. But we'd like to see it used, you know, for fertilizer.
So you put this over top of that blue bar.
Yes. 11 levers on this. Well, a couple we don't use all the time, but
Hey, that was great.
that's it.
That was awesome. Well, thanks, John.
You're welcome. Thank you very much for coming out.
Well, Karen, that was a blast to get the ride on the weed harvester. That was a lot of fun. So if somebody wants to help, what do they do?
Well, CLAMA is funded completely through donations and help. Basically, we get private donations where people just write us a check. We host events, our CLAMA Bash and our CLAMA Dance each year, and the third source is grants. So if anybody wants to help out CLAMA, you can write a check and send it to P.O. Box 49, Conneaut Lake, Pennsylvania, 16316. And we are always looking for help and volunteers. We have a very small group of volunteers, and there's a lot of expertise we could use from other people that might do that and be able to just donate an hour or two and help us out.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for being with us today on
Thank you
Crawford
very
County
much.
Outdoors. So donate to CLAMA. Okay, we will talk to you next time.